But to me, and this is just me, the more exceptional attorneys are scenario planning or thinking about what might happen. What could happen in this loan that I should be thinking about?
Hello, everyone. Put down your bags and relax, and welcome to the Room Key, where today's guest teaches lawyers how not to be boring. Mission accomplished. My guest today is Steven Shapiro. He's an educator in the hospitality legal mind and the director of the Hospitality and Tourism Law Program at American University Washington College of Law. Steven doesn't just teach the law, he shapes the way future hospitality attorneys think about service, risk, value, and what it means to actually help a hotel owner. With a career that spans courtroom strategy, business insight, and sharp academic leadership, Stephen brings a unique lens on how legal training intersects with real world hospitality. If you've ever wondered what makes a great hospitality attorney or how legal thinking can drive better business decisions, this is the episode worth checking in for. Stephen, thanks for being on. I'm excited to get to hear more of your story and your perspective.
Chase, thanks so much for having me. We could parse out each of those sentences from your introduction and go in different directions. I'll let you call the ball.
Absolutely. Leave it open. We'll see where the conversation takes us. Stephen, I love origin stories. Where did you grow up? Who was Stephen as a kid?
Right. Well, if we want to do origin stories, we start with my grandparents, my grandfathers who came over on boats and started produce stands and the Depression in Maryland. But if we jump ahead, and grandparents had three sons, my dad was one of them, and all three in the American dream way went on to be attorneys. And that's probably some of my origin story. I went through college straight to law school, did the traditional practice of law in a law firm, and it really wasn't for me. I did fine at it. I went to good schools, but I didn't thrive. And at starting probably at age 37 or so, started asking questions about design and construction. I was doing real estate development and kept asking those questions and still ask those questions many years later. And a friend on a double dare in the summer of 2001 suggested I go into construction. And he was
Interesting.
serious, and I started to chase it and enrolled in a graduate program at the University of Maryland in civil engineering, having been an econ and business studies in college.
Okay.
Liked it, and then that same friend told me to go get a job in construction. So in fall of 2001, I was with young kids. I know you have young kids. Left the practice of law, got a job with a national commercial contractor, and was in graduate engineering school, and did that for nearly 3 years. I got my in graduate school, got my master's degree, pulled my kids and wife out for graduation, and stayed in general contracting for about 15, 16 years. I'm not sure if you want all this origin story, but started teaching in 2006. I thought the school was missing a class. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and continued to do that and have done that. 2011, I came here to you said, Washington College of Law, WCL, started teaching construction law, which has some blends later into our conversation. Liked it
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit and wanted to teach a class. I wrote down on a piece of paper some ideas for a program, and uh, one of those ideas was hospitality law. We have Marriott is headquartered here in D.C. Been here
Yep.
since its beginning. Hilton had recently moved at that time from Los Angeles back to McLean or to McLean. Choice hotels, hotel owners. I gathered some friends. I bought some subs and sandwiches and asked them their opinions about some ideas, and they all pointed to hotel law and said, go do that. I proposed the idea to the dean, the then dean, in late 2011. He liked it, asked me to come back. Came back in 2012, said, let's do this thing. I'll give you 5 years to make it net revenue and go starting 2013. We'll talk more about what the program is, but we started making net revenue in our first year and haven't looked back. And we'll talk, you and I, in a few minutes about expanding internationally into Europe, mostly in France, and then our
Yeah.
work here. But that's my origin story. Um, and I kind of define the program as who I am. I do a lot of different things professionally and academically, but at my core is the program. But leading into our initial program in 2013, I grabbed a friend of mine who was second in charge at Marriott General Counsel and basically said, I don't understand the business. Can you explain it to me? So there's a lot of different tasks as a director of a program, and it's been richly rewarding. But I'll let you ask the questions, but that's my origin story.
Yes. Yes. Well, you've had a fascinating and varied career. What do you think is the through line that brought you to hospitality law and education itself?
I'm not sure I
Why
can.
hospitality?
Why hospitality? Um, Before I answer the question, when I was thinking about construction law, and I still teach it along with hospitality, I teach what is design and construction. What are those workers doing on a job site? And we do the same thing in the hospitality. So it's not just, we could easily, I suppose, or agonizingly go through a management agreement, hospitality management agreement, line by line. We've never once done that. We talk about what is happening in the hotel, who are the players in the hotel, what are the different tensions, and we go from there. So the through line, can you ask this question a different way? I'm not sure I'm tracking a through line.
So you've had a lot of different careers, if you
Right.
will. What do you think is the through line, and why? I'm a big believer that we go through things for a reason. Obviously, you have family inside law. You jumped into that. You went into construction. You were on the education side, obviously inside law. Is there a through line of something that you've learned directly and you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing as far as being the director of hospitality at Washington College of Law without these
Yeah,
this past?
it's a terrific question. I think I understand it. Maybe one way to answer it is kind of everything gathers together.
No.
So in real estate development law, like in construction, oddly, there are massive checklists that have to, each
Yes.
item must be checked. In a building, you can't build without having those boxes checked. In law, you can't, you're at risk for your clients if those boxes aren't checked. So one through line would be sort of an attention to detail, no matter what the tasks are, more for directing the program than for a student in the seat. I'm not sure what I've taken away from law school, always sure what I've taken away, but there's a certain sense of I can figure this out, right? We're not doing surgery here. Whatever the question is, whatever the topic is, a sense of we can throw hard work at it and figure it out. So I would say
Yeah.
that as a preparation. And going back to this, well, we'll talk more about the students in the seat. Those would be the through lines for me. Um, Taking tasks and figuring out how to do each of those tasks. I've picked up sort of in each position along the way. Uh, Going back a little bit to the origin story, there are plenty of lawyers who say they dislike the law. Um, I was never one of them. I liked it. I didn't mind it. I thought it was interesting. I thought law school was hard and interesting, but I tell students often it might not be where you thrive, and hopefully you can get to where you thrive. So I feel
Yeah.
lucky. Okay, we'll keep going.
Yes. I had an attorney once. I was having a good discussion with him, and I was kind of venting and complaining about the law, the process that we have. And he said, I agree. There's a lot of flaws to our system, but it's the best system that we have. I thought that was very wise that we've tested out a lot of different things, and I say we as a culture society over, obviously our 250 years in America, but also thousands of years
Yeah,
across the
I,
world.
I agree. When I was in college, we were required to take I went to a Catholic school. We were required to take two theology and two philosophy, which of course I wouldn't have done otherwise. But the whole
Right.
philosophy of uh, fairness and truth and justice probably begins with due process, and I think that's probably what you're talking about. It's not perfect, of course, but it's what we have, and hopefully
Yeah.
mistakes aren't made often.
One thing that in your story that I found fascinating is you saw a need for hospitality law, but you also said you had no idea about the industry. What did you see as a need inside the law, even though you didn't know the industry itself?
Yeah, I'll go back one premise, which is, and I also talk to students, is I pay attention to inklings. I didn't know there was a need. I thought there might be a need.
Okay.
I didn't know that no one else was doing this. We're the only program anywhere that does a coherent, cohesive set of classes in hotel law. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. It was just there's something out here, and I want to chase it and see what's there. Um, and then the more I looked, of course, there's Cornell and all the great universities that look at the business of hospitality, but no one was taking a look at it. So it was really going piece by piece and then assembling those blocks and then going. So a lot of what we do today, we started in 2011, 2012, 2013, and a lot we've added on with experience and our own testing and retesting over time. So it wasn't a eureka moment. It was this is something worth picking at. So to answer your question,
Yeah, jumping in, testing it out, talking to others, obviously, buying up some subs, and hey, let's talk through this and see is is there anything to this, or
yeah,
do we throw it away
and
and go on to the next thing?
yeah, the day after the subs and sandwiches, I called a prominent attorney who was a colleague and a friend, and I said, I'm thinking about this idea. What do you think? And he said, run as fast as you can and do it, which was all I
Yeah,
needed. So that was that was the start of that inkling.
awesome. How have those varied career chapters in your life shaped the way that you approach leadership, education, and law?
Yeah. First of all, I'm not sure, but secondly, I, um, I'm more open to what's available to the students and I try to understand. I hope I'm answering your question. Try to understand each student, and they may or may not be on a track to thrive in the practice of law. In the hotel law program and in my classes, I'm always introducing non-traditional careers for lawyers. I like to expose students to what you can do. And I'm not talking about going off and doing mechanical subcontracting. There are plenty of law adjacent type of positions. Government contracting officers
Yeah,
are kind of not lawyers, but they're in that area. There are all kinds of interesting positions that can take that knowledge of law and procedure and have great careers. So I do try to give it more thought to the students when we talk about the program, the actual HTL, Hospitality and Tourism Law program. I bring in lots of different voices and show the students where they can thrive and what they should understand as lawyers to be more effective lawyers. Part of what I think I'm doing in academics is, and I sell the students, is I hope I'm preparing you to thrive in whatever career you're going to run. And that's sort of a driving force for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like you are very similar, but I'm a big fan of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and his constantly talking about the mastermind concept. And yes, you jumping in with some other colleagues and saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? What are your perspectives? And then going to a hospitality professional, somebody who's been in the industry, and teach me this. How can we merge and lift the tide of everything by teaching me what I need to know in order to teach my
Yes.
students?
And we will often have in the classroom in the HTL program, I'll bring in a hotel general manager, I'll bring in a global purchasing director. I'll bring in, we do back of house tours and we talk to the line cooks. It all matters. It's all the practice of law. Um,
Yeah,
Even if it's not line by line again of that management agreement or that franchise agreement. And
yeah,
again, we can teach that if you want, but there's just no relevance to it, no bigger picture.
right. And there's so many different aspects to. I mean, you say hospitality law, but what does that even mean? Because you're pulling in uh, practically every type of law practice all in one line.
Yeah, the marketing of the program is still my number one task. And the number one question is, what is hotel law? Um, so if we want to start turning in that direction, and we should, it's at a core element are the economic models, independent hotel owners and operators, franchising, owner operate, franchising, third party operate, brand managed, and then all the variations. We do, in addition, labor and employment law, unions, employment
Yep.
discrimination, harassment. We bring in insurance and risk management, a huge area, cybersecurity and data privacy, huge areas. We bring in disputes. We have disputes. We bring in anti corruption and compliance, huge topics. We bring in
Yeah.
FTC for franchising. It's and these aren't depending on the years. We might bring in bankruptcy. It's a big topic. We
Okay.
talk about corporate structure, which isn't necessarily law, but uh, equity stack, debt, what is lending, and we do in 8 days of classes. We do quite a bit, and
Yeah.
of course, we can't go into a deep dive in all of those, but certainly a first quick and good look at these topics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would imagine a lot of that is to give, a really good basis of knowledge about the entire perspective. And then, I would assume if somebody's interested in one particular area, then that's how they really dive in.
Sure. And that's, some people want to do litigation. Some people want to run in a different direction. Some people didn't know that there was cybersecurity as part of what is a hotel. Um, Same with
Right.
There's just a lot of different ways to attend. We also do hotel real estate development, another area. We we try to bring in everything that at least is mildly relevant.
Yeah. And one of the themes of this podcast, again, is that mastermind concept. But in my work in general, one of my main goals is just helping good people do good work. And that's true when I bring a buyer and seller together of a hotel. It's a true for these interviews as well, is just bringing good people together so that we can all learn. So here's my question. How do you teach your students to be truly helpful to their future clients, not just answering today's legal question, but helping to move the hotel or the business forward long term?
I'm going to start by not answering your question, then I'll get to your question. In two ways, not answering. And one is it's the hospitality industry. You're touching it. You're part of it. It's incredible. The first answer is almost always yes. How can I help?
Right.
Sometimes the last answer is, I tried everything I could, but I can't. So it's an infectious industry. It all, whichever way you cut it, always seems to be, you're going to get outliers, but it's always going to seem to be helpful, which is great. And countless times I've called people blindly and said, "Can you do this?" And it's not always worked out, but it's often worked out. The second way to not answer your question would be I try to teach students to be a little bit bold, is how I try to put it. By nature, we go to LinkedIn and we looked at our colleges or law school and try and contact people. It's like, well, that's fine, but just try to connect with people. I'll help them with their messaging. People out there want to help, so figure out a way to get to them. And again, it's not ever going to be 100%, but we have pretty good luck. And someone was featured in an article, or I see someone on a podcast, and I say, send them a note. That was awfully interesting. I have a student who's interested in this. Would you mind chatting with them? And it's not always
Very
good,
nice.
but we get it. So I think now I'll try to answer your question, but it felt like it had two parts, which is I'm not one for generational themes, and I'm not here. Students understand that they've gotten help and they're eager to repay it down the line, and they do repay it down the line. The second part of what I heard you say is how does it help them, I think, in servicing their clients and being a better lawyer for their clients, which
Yes.
maybe goes back to the classroom, which is I hope that they are learning about there's going to be a zoning problem in a hotel. Here's how it's going to happen. It's going to be someone living in their parents' basement who doesn't want a new project, and to be more attuned to, okay, the law says you can do zoning, let's go do zoning. No, you got to deal with the human element. So hopefully we're teaching all of us in the class, in the program, the realistic expectations once they're in practice. So they're not just going to be robotically saying, we're on page 17 now of the franchise agreement, and we're going to do an area of protection to understand in some areas it might matter a lot, in some areas it might not, and to at least be more fine tuned into, I'm not sure an emotional response is, but a more fulsome response as a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah. A more wholehearted, honest, bigger picture response. In your opinion, what separates a merely competent attorney from one who truly adds value to a hotel business?
Yeah, it may not be different from what makes a good attorney versus a terrific attorney. So I'll start there. For me, there's a few things. One is sort of the basics of lawyering, clear drafting, clear knowledge of the law. That's expected. Um, if you're an attorney, you should have those fundamental skills. And of course, there are going to be all kinds of attorneys who have more grasp of the basics, but you should have that fundamental. And I don't mean to be breezy about it, it's hard to do. But to
Yeah.
me, and this is just me, the more exceptional attorneys are scenario planning or thinking about what might happen. What what could happen in this loan that I should be thinking about? If lender does this, how do we respond? If franchisor does this, how do we respond? Some of it comes with experience. You've seen it. Some of it just, and I'm not talking about something whimsical or fanciful, something that might happen and how they
Right.
respond. And then certainly can't be taught, but there's an emotional quotient of understanding your client. Does your client want you to be a trusted business advisor? Okay. Or does your client want you to be a technical drafting technical agreements.
Sure.
Is your client under financial stress? Is your client a visionary? Is your client risk averse? Those, I mean, you can make a list of them, but to have that sense to ask or understand those questions without asking, you're not going to ask a client probably, are you risk averse? You're going to see it. So that to me makes great attorneys from very, very good attorneys, and someone that clients will cling to. Say, I'll ride with you.
And how do you train students for that? What skills, perspectives are you trying to give them that go beyond just the traditional legal education?
Right. I'll start with the scenario one. That one I just try to give examples of um, and situations for the students, and have them sort of explore. One idea I do is a right of first refusal, which is a basic idea. But then we'll do
Yeah.
something basic, and then I'll introduce. Well, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? What happens if this happens? And try to, at least in a vignette, explain to them what can be, and have them paying attention to it. And again, I've seen really quite bright attorneys foul deals by seeing shadows where there aren't any. Maybe they're just trying to show off a little bit. But what's
Sure.
realistic, and fine, but what's realistic? What could happen? How have you thought about it?
Right.
The other is I just try to talk about it and make sense of it, that there's this emotional. There are people who I admire quite a bit. I can't replicate what they do. I can try and I can pay attention.
Hmm.
But that's it's. I'm not sure it's teachable, but you can certainly do better and pay attention to it and try to say what's happening here. Who is
Yes.
it, my client, and what do they want from me? I've had clients, and went back when I was practicing law, and it's been more than 2 decades. You're
Right.
like, I don't, didn't come out and say it, but basically, I don't need you to be my trusted advisor. I need you to do this lease and get it done. It's like, okay, fine. And other people will say, other clients will like, what do you think? I'm like, well, here's what I think.
Yeah.
So simple as that. I mean, not as straightforward as that. It's not simple.
Right. So, zooming out a little bit on what's next, what do you see changing in hospitality that will shape how your students, or the future lawyers, and what they need to do to think differently?
Yeah, let's try and go through that. So, if we were teaching hotel law in 1992, or predominantly all of the hotels brands owned all of their hotels.
Yeah.
Starting in the mid 90s, asset light. Not sure anybody saw that coming, but what would have been academics then changed to a lot of what we teach now. Um, and I'll try and touch on your question in different ways. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not sure we've come a long way in the economics of the hospitality industry. Not economics like how much revenue, but the economic relationships among the parties. Um, I think even I don't not going to touch on politics, of course, but we are a more global economy. What used to be the asset light in the U.S. felt like Asia next, then to Europe, now kind of South America. So I think, thinking globally in Africa somewhat, thinking globally about where we look and where the hotel brands are looking to thrive.
Hmm.
Consolidation, of course, Marriott and Starwood, as a major moment. So I don't see anything drastic that we're going to be changing, and a lot of what we do responds to the market. A question that everyone asks all the time is going to be AI, and I'm not sure how it'll change lawyering. It'll probably change some of hospitality, but a guest arriving in a hotel and being greeted and given room, that model is not changing by technology that much, other than, you know, keyless room entries, and that'll always be interesting. I think we still have a passion and a human need to travel and have leisure and conduct business.
Yeah. Are there any legal or operational risks that you see emerging that hotel owners may not be watching closely enough?
They're pretty careful. Um, well, the first that leaps in mind is cybersecurity, data security. That's a constant threat. We just came off, not that long ago, global health crisis. I'm not sure that's certainly a crisis. Not much legally involved, other than, how do we survive this? I mean, you remember
Right.
March 11th, 2020 versus March 14th, 2020 were two dramatically different worlds. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else would be changing, um,
Yeah.
except at the margins where technology can help.
Yeah. 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 AI, there's a lot of stuff
Yeah, it's
that's
all
changing
interesting and
naturally,
good,
but
and in some ways, it's still a tradition bound industry. We have all kinds of technology in the hotel rooms, but, a light switch that I can find or a guest can find to turn on and off, and a TV that's maybe I can connect to my laptop, maybe not, and
right.
a good Wi Fi signal, not bad. I'm not sure I need an iPad. Um, Technology is there, but
Yeah.
it still feels like we just want, a nice room in a good location.
Yeah. You mentioned in one article that you wrote that GPA doesn't matter as much as people think. What does matter when it comes to being effective in this industry, especially as a legal advisor?
Well, I would start with understanding the what your client's business is, no matter what field you go in. I mean, there's certain areas where GPA does matter. I mean,
Yeah.
tax law, kind of. I mean, that's just a needs a lot of brain power. But for a lot of areas, understanding your client, the business, um, where the risks are hidden or not hidden, um, those relationships, understanding. A lot of lawyers don't understand financial literacy. In our HTL program, we do, it's just 90 minutes, but we do 90 minutes of financial literacy. Can you
Yeah.
understand it? You don't need to run the spreadsheets or IRR, but do you understand what cap rate means in IRR, and why those pressures might matter? And when your client is arguing over a management agreement incentive fee, and owner says, I want an 8% IRR. Well, okay, how does that matter? So
Right.
it's a broader view of understanding their business. You certainly need core competence, but
Yes.
it's a field that's wide open.
Yeah. And I mean, just the general concept of know what matters to your client, because that's how they're making their decisions, right?
Absolutely. And there's a certain, and I tell students also, they sometimes they'll ask about, do you think I should go to a law firm first or go into, and me, I, like many others, will say you should probably go to a law firm first. And there are many reasons, but one is there's an expectation or an insistence on perfection in a law firm.
Hmm.
No matter what your rate is, you're getting paid to be exactly right and to not have mistakes. And it's
Yeah.
hard to replicate. I mean, we all strive for that, but it's a demand in a law firm, and I find that's critically important. So no matter what your grade point, we can all be perfect. As far as, we can try to be perfect, of course, for that
Of
checklist. We
course.
all we all make our mistakes, but
Right.
and each one of those checklist items is a busted can be a busted deal.
Right.
Something,
Right.
seemingly minor can change a deal.
You've written from everything from casino case studies, trademarked hotel lobby scents. What are some lessons that are hidden in these or other examples that hotel owners might not think of as legal issues?
I do a contract drafting class, and I one time asked someone if this is a business issue or a legal issue, and the response
Hmm.
was sort of, they're all business issues and they're all legal issues. So I think one lesson is pay attention to everything. It all matters. I think so much of the industry, at least hospitality, is the workers, the staff,
Yeah.
wherever you find them. You're going to find them in housekeeping and assistant general manager and maybe the accounting group that's off site. Where those relationships are, that seems to be an area that owners sometimes um, forget. I think there's such pressure on the brands for growth and the Wall Street. I think owners might have more economic power than they might believe. Um, there's great pressure. They call it net unit growth (NUG). They're constantly. We have Hilton and Marriott and Choice, and they have their quarterly calls, and they just have that pressure. So I
Yeah.
think owners might have more leverage at times than they realize. They can't always exercise it with franchise agreements, but maybe their deal that they have a ramp up or key money. Um, but owners are, I mean, they don't need my help. They're a pretty sophisticated group
Sure.
in general.
Flipping it around and speaking directly to those hotel owners, investors, developers in our audience, if they're hiring some legal help, what should they be looking for beyond just a good degree?
Well, I'll give you a trite answer, but I think it's also a good answer. One is a background in this. Sometimes law firms, in house counsel want to hire the best athletes, um, which is fine, and they'll train them. But I would think someone that has an appreciation of what the industry is. And
Yeah.
the trite part is I was going to use passion, but passion's not the right word. It's a curiosity. That theme comes up again and again. If the person interviewing has a genuine or seemingly genuine question about what's going on here, why did you do this? What does this mean? Something as basic as equipment in the kitchen to something in the franchise or management agreement. Just that, to me, curiosity is always wherever you find it. But to me, it's a good indicator. And
Yeah.
that curiosity also, if we go back 20 minutes, leads to that scenario of what might happen, of just sort of sitting back and thinking, okay, what's happening here? I mean, sometimes you don't need it. Many times you don't need it. It's a straight up deal, but it can become complex.
Yeah. Are there any certain questions that they should ask, qualities that they should prioritize to find someone who really understands and has that curiosity about hospitality?
Well, again, it's trite, but do you have any questions for me? I think that's a starting point, or hopefully more organically, it's a conversation of if I'm the interviewer and I'm asking in house, are they peppering me with questions? Are they asking me about all kinds of topics? If I'm a hotel brand, are they asking me about R&D and the next new line that's coming up? Or, I mean, sometimes you can go overboard, of course, but not just about the role that's being interviewed for, but how does it all fit into the company? That to
Yeah.
me is, I mean, from both sides. I mean, I think that would resonate, and to have that knowledge of the director of finance is doing this and revenue management means that. Um, so a little bit, but I keep going back to that sort of insatiable questioning. Um, so I'll stick with that for right now.
Awesome. Well, you can't check out before you have your wake up call. Part of the segment that we go through some rapid fire questions. It doesn't have to be fast answers, of course, but what's what's one legal myth in hospitality you wish would disappear?
Maybe I usually just go with whatever pops into my head. That lawyers know everything and have the answers. They don't. They can't make snap judgments all the time. They can't make guarantees all the time. They can have sensible responses.
Are you saying that lawyers are humans too?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And a lot of what the practice, I mean, you can never, you can almost never write an agreement that prevents fraud. If you're dealing with a bad actor, I mean, maybe there are some ways, but if you're dealing with a bad actor, you can have the greatest legal minds and you're not going to prevent it. Maybe that's my myth.
That's a good one. What's a hospitality case or student discussion that's really stuck with you?
I'll do one first. I'm not sure this is the one I'll go with, but there were a line of cases with the midnight raids. They're pretty much ended now, where hotel owners wanted the brand managers to get out, and in some cases locked them out. In some cases had guards, private guards, keep them out,
Hmm.
and which was a whole interesting, troubling area. But the courts were willing to take plain language of an agreement, a management agreement, and reinterpret it to their, this is my opinion, to their will, and to create something that wasn't there. And then said, well, if you had put an agency coupled with an interest, that might have been different. And so the lawyers, being lawyers, started writing management agreements with agencies coupled with interest and an actual payment, and not a peppercorn, but a real investment.
Right.
And the court said, no, we're still not going to. It was just sort of a shocking to me court action to reread legal agreements in ways that I wasn't taught, or were typically not taught of, in American commerce and American law, that the four corners of the agreements in general govern.
Right. Okay.
So I'll go with that one.
Yeah. What's one thing that your students understand better than most practicing lawyers?
They understand the need. They understand the need for travel and leisure. They understand intuitively, and maybe obviously perhaps, what their generation, I've used it now twice, but what their cohorts are looking for. We're seeing it now with loyalty programs that used to be, by tradition, stay 12 nights and get the 13th night free, the way we would all design it, to now saying, who wants a guest experience with a chef? Who wants to go
Hmm.
for a jog around the National Mall? I think
Right.
that is driven by the customer. So these students, are digital natives, and we would be wise to watch what they find important. We do, because we want them to stay in the hotel. The hotel brands want them to stay in the hotels.
Right. There's three different parts. Answer all or one or none, I guess. What's the best advice you like to give your students about client service, business, or life?
Um, let's do it one at a time. Client service, and we've talked about it a couple of times. Understanding their business, um, trying to get their know their client. Certainly, being time. I mean, it's obvious, but I had a former student, who got in terrible trouble by being late. I mean, those basics, but having a good grasp on understanding your client. Um, in life, for me, is well, I'll give you an example. The first couple of weeks, and everyone by nature, you go into a classroom, and wherever you sit, you just tend to stay. I
Yeah.
get it. We all do it. But the first 2 or 3 weeks of a class, I make the students sit in a different place. I have them sit in a different place. I have them introduce themselves to somebody they don't know for a few minutes this first couple of weeks. After
Yeah.
that, then I let them sit wherever they want. Um,
Okay.
and I just find, without it, students don't even know who's in the classroom. We go around the classroom before the session, there's some sort of topic, favorite home cooked meal. It doesn't matter. And before the session starts, I like lasagna. I like lasagna. The whole, my grandmother makes the best pierogies. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so my life, it's sort of professional and life, is to form these relationships, to stay in touch, um, to ask help when you need help, certainly to give help, but you don't need to tell them. People will give help if they're asked for help.
Yeah.
So the short answer to your question is to stay in touch and to stay connected. It's not necessarily professional; it might be, but it's
Right.
just to stay in touch. And part of the practice of law are the stresses and the hours and the financial pressures, and if they can stay in touch and talk it through, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And one of the most important reasons to go, I mean, if you're going to practice law, you got to go to college no matter what. But one of the biggest reasons for university, for college, and I talk to my kids about this, if they want to go to college, is the network. Obviously, your college friends are probably going to be your lifelong friends much more than your high school, but just the network that is sitting in there is probably one of the best assets that you can come out of college with.
And I always, what students will, first years especially, will ask me, do you have any advice? And I mean it. I'm not sure if they do it, but I say go meet with 10 professors. Your professors, not your professors. We're
Right?
all busy. Everyone's busy, but 8 or 9. If you pick 15, 12, 13, or 14, I'll say, yeah, come on up. Come meet me during office hours. Come have a cup of coffee with me. Find out what they're all about. Um, I and I try to do that. I try to do it with students in the hallway. I'll grab people and ask them what's going on, and I'm not sure what professional benefit it has, but it gives a richness to what we do, and who knows? But
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly your point. You can't go to a university solely for networking. You want to grab content,
Yes.
but it sure is nice.
Right. Last question. If you could issue a wake up call to every hotel owner about their legal strategy, what would it be?
Well, I'll give you the first thing that comes to mind, which is maybe the first thing is to grab your lawyer early. In design and construction, I like to say when the architect is doing a cocktail napkin sketch, start engaging then. Maybe same idea when
Yep.
hotel owner is sketching an idea for a new hotel. You grab your lawyer. I know it costs money, but there are so many times when lawyers are engaged and the client says, "Well, I've signed this term sheet. Let's go," and they've already given away
Yeah.
everything. They've entered into a brand managed agreement and they didn't leave open the possibility of a franchise third party. You've just, I don't care who the lawyer is or how bright the lawyer is or what pedigree the lawyer has. They can't do anything and most people are going to honor their letter of intent and they've just crushed themselves for no reason.
Right.
And most lawyers would say, do not sign that or add a line.
Right.
So I think that answers your question, I think.
Yeah. Your team is so important. Why bring in one of the major, most important parts of your team towards the end of the game, or in the
We
middle of the game, or
and
even
we
after
know
the first
why,
inning?
right? I mean, lawyers are now charging more than $1,000. We get it that you want to save that 15 hours, but it can just crush you.
Right. Those early conversations, even if it is that $15,000 that you spoke of, if that saves you, that's nothing when you're talking about the operation of a hotel or the development of a hotel. 15,000 is pennies.
And we're not talking about an airport, extended stay. We're talking about, a hotel that has some cost to it and Either
Yeah.
they're going to own it and hold it or they want to sell it, but those have huge implications. That 15,000, you might have sell or buyers who are not interested in brand managed and who would be interested in franchised, or you've just crushed the value, somewhat crushed the value. But
Yeah. Tell us about the Washington College of Law program.
it's the only program, as I mentioned earlier, we have four one credit classes. It's the only program anywhere in law that is even Cornell doesn't have it, and cohesive in law. The program is designed for law students. It's designed for lawyers, young lawyers who are in hotel law practices as a boot camp. Designed for lawyers. We get lawyers who are looking for mid-career change, like I made,
Hmm.
shifting from maybe banking to hotel law. This last June, we had two students looking to make pivot changes, and it's also designed for non-lawyers. We get a HOA, Asian American Hotel Owners Association,
Right.
second generation, third generation. Many went and got MBAs and have great pride in their family business, but wanted to do something
Yeah.
else. And some come back and say, I certainly know I remember grandma and grandpa cleaning the rooms and they've grown to a portfolio, but I really don't understand the industry. So we're
Right.
designed for that. And sometimes we get just people interested, brokers interested in careers, but predominantly it's going to be lawyers, law students. Um, we do back of the house tours, we do gaming, we do back of the house tours of casinos, we do receptions. It's wine tasting. It's a great way to get connected and to see the entirety of what, or most of the entirety of what is a hotel.
Yeah. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on, giving your perspective. Wish you all the best in the future.
I look forward to meeting you in person, and thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.